Mothers who use a surrogate to have a child do not currently get maternity leave or pay. By contrast, of course, adoptive parents can have up to a year off work. Today, the Labour MP John Healey introduces a 10-minute rule bill in Parliament calling for better maternity rights for so-called intended parents. Now, the surrogacy lawyer Natalie Gamble has been campaigning on this issue for quite a few years. Natalie, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
So how much of a problem is this for people who use surrogates?
Oh, it's a real problem in practice, and it's almost the final insult for people who have had a real long struggle to have their family, often years of fertility treatment, having to resort to using a surrogate mother, and then when their baby finally arrives, they have no right to have any time off work to look after their new child.
What do they do?
Well, I mean, some parents successfully negotiate with their employers to get discretionary leave, but they're very much at the mercy of what any particular employer will agree to. And ultimately, if they can't get that discretionary leave, then they have to make sometimes a very difficult choice to leave their job because they need to have that time to bond with their new baby.
Some employers, though, are very cooperative and really do make an effort to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Some employers who have very good practice obviously want to support their employees, but it's not something that they have to do. There aren't the same legal obligations as there are where a mother has a baby that she gives birth to or where a couple adopts a child. As I said, it's very much a question of being at the mercy of the discretion of any particular employer.
And is it fair to say that bigger companies find it easier to do that than smaller ones?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, small employers are often the ones that have the most difficult time because it's costly for them to give sort of discretionary leave over and above what they're required to do, where there's sort of statutory recompense for pay and so on.
Of course, we ought to bear in mind that the woman who is carrying the child may well be getting maternity leave and pay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, right to a certain extent as well, because obviously the woman who gives birth needs a certain amount of time to recover from that. But the issue is that the baby is handed over to the parents immediately from birth. So the surrogate mother has the normal rights to maternity leave of up to a year off work, but she's not actually caring for the child for that time.
So what about this 10-minute rule bill then? Is it likely to have any impact on the law at all?
Well, it's a really positive step forward, and for Parliament to be debating this issue is fantastic. Statistically, 10-minute rule bills don't often become law because even if there's a positive vote in Parliament today, the bill has to be given enough parliamentary time in the timetable going forwards to go through all of its various stages. So it may be that this is just an opportunity to air the issue and that the government may well pick up on that and introduce legislation of its own. But we're hopeful that it will change the law.
Now, there is also a case that's been referred to the European Court of Justice. Is that really significant?
That's a case involving a mother who has taken a case against her employer who didn't give maternity leave, where she'd had a baby through surrogacy. And that's essentially testing the issue of whether our law is currently discriminatory. But references to the ECJ can take years to be decided. So it's not something that's going to make any change imminently.
How many people actually are we talking about? How many people use surrogates?
Well, it's often difficult to collect statistics, but it is something that's becoming much more common and more visible. And we've certainly seen a big increase in the last couple of years of parental orders granted, and that's the order that you get from the family court after a child is born through surrogacy. So it is certainly something that's on the increase.
Natalie, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. That's Natalie Gamble, who's a lawyer. She was in our studio in Southampton.